We all know Nick Matthew loves a crop top. Personally, it's not for me. But what if a competition told you you didn't have a choice? You have to have a crop top. How would you feel about that? And isn't it funny that this only applied to the women's field? Welcome back to the channel. Let's talk about clothes. Now, we might remember some big headlines regarding the difference between men and women's clothing in sport. For example, the Norwegian handball team that made headlines as well as receiving a fine because they wanted to be allowed to play in shorts as their male counterparts were, as they felt that having to wear the bikinis were inappropriate and over-sexualized. Now, while the example I want to speak about isn't quite to the degree that these women had to face, it does seem that some athletes are facing a similar situation with regards to the kit being provided for Wodapalooza. So this year sees Wodapalooza sporting a new title sponsor in Tyr. Tyr, of course, have been a very visible presence within CrossFit this year in particular, sponsoring a number of high-level and high-profile athletes, and we saw an incredible number of athletes choosing to wear their shoes at this year's CrossFit Games. So no doubt when people heard that Tyr would be providing the kit for the athletes at Wodapalooza, they were excited. Your own personalized shirt with your name on it, just like at the Games, really makes you feel like an athlete. And I know it's just a t-shirt, but let's not forget that CrossFitters, although they have a reputation for taking their top off as soon as they possibly can, they also love a t-shirt. People will volunteer to help out at an event, they will judge at an event just for the promise of a free t-shirt. So when athletes were registering for Wodapalooza on Competition Corner, they had to select the size and style of shirt that they wanted. And this is where things start to get interesting, because recently some athletes have started to get messages from Wodapalooza. And basically the message is saying that you have selected a men's t-shirt, and this year all the female athletes are being given crop tanks. So you need to go back in and select the size you want of that style of shirt. So this is quite interesting because, first of all, these are two very different things, right? Men are getting a standard t-shirt, whereas the women are having to wear not just a tank, but a crop tank. Now, no doubt when some women saw that, they were overjoyed because a crop tank is their go-to style. They love it. And actually, when we watch the CrossFit Games, we see a whole variety of styles that people want to wear, don't we? We have athletes that are happy to compete in a sports bra and shorts. We have athletes that want to wear a t-shirt and leggings, and we have variations in between. Even among the men, you're going to have an athlete that wants to pop the top at the first bead of sweat, as well as athletes that will keep their shirts on for the whole workout. And then you have Nick Matthew. But the point is that these athletes wear what they want to wear, what they feel most comfortable competing in. Now, sometimes that will be because of the particular workout they're doing. Maybe they want an extra layer of protection because they know they're going to be doing rope climbs or jumping over hay barrels or something like that. But for others, it might just be how they feel in those clothes, how they feel they look, how they feel about other people looking at them. And if we've ever watched a live stream of a CrossFit event and gone in the comment section, we know that people feel all too free to comment on how people look and what they're wearing. And so I've been speaking with a couple of different athletes that had selected the men's t-shirts and got this response from Wodapalooza. So they replied to explain that, well, this wasn't, a mistake, or they had deliberately selected a men's shirt because that's what they felt more comfortable competing in. And this is the reply they got from Wodapalooza, basically saying that, well, Tyr are the company making all of the shirts this year, and as they are customized shirts, well, we cannot accommodate your request, and suggest just ordering a larger crop top if you want that oversized feel. Well, at this point, we should just make a note that a men's t-shirt and a very oversized crop tank are not the same thing. Not even close, really. But this all feels a little strange, doesn't it? It first of all feels a little bit like they are just passing the blame to Tyr and saying, well, they're making the shirts, there's nothing we can do about it. But at the same time, people filled out this when they were registering on Competition Corner, so they've had this information for quite a long time now. They could have acted upon it sooner, but saying that they are custom made so they can't accommodate them actually seems kind of counterintuitive, because the fact that they are custom made and they are now requesting the size of these athletes to make the crop tank, well, why can't they just make them a t-shirt at this point? And then, of course, the skeptic in me also wonders, would they have responded the same way to a higher profiled, better known athlete? For example, if Tia Claire Toomey was saying she wanted a t-shirt, I'm sure they'd have found enough material and the time to print her a custom one. And not just because Tia in a Tia shirt sounds great, but because if she is highlighting the issues that we're talking about in this video on her platform with the amount of followers she had, no doubt they'd be a little bit more concerned about the situation. But as I said, it does feel a little bit like they are just passing the blame onto Tia. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any contacts at Wodapalooza, but I do know some people at Tia, because I had the chance to speak to them when I made a previous video about the waves that Tia were making within the CrossFit space. So I reached out to them. Now, as of recording, I haven't yet had a reply. I am happy to say that I know they've reached out to at least one of the athletes that has raised their concern about the t-shirt issue. Basically saying that they are now working on options and pointing out the fact that, well, you don't actually have to wear any of the gear that Tia is providing. So I am happy that at least they've reached out. That's a small ray of hope for these athletes, which is wonderful. And then pointing out that they don't actually have to wear the gear that's being provided by Tia. Of course, that is a big difference to, say, the Norwegian handball team that didn't have an alternative option and had to get fined because they chose not to wear bikinis and wanted to wear shorts. But this could also explain why we might not hear about this issue from those athletes that have a higher profile, because probably they are being sponsored by different brands, which means they can have a t-shirt, a crop top, a tank top, a sports bra, whatever it may be that they want, provided by that sponsor. So this may actually only be an issue for this sort of smaller set of women. But at the same time, this top should be a wonderful piece of memorabilia. It's a personalized reminder that you were there competing at such a big event like Wodapalooza. Instead, this could end up just being a bitter reminder that you received something you didn't want, you had strong feelings about, and you're not going to wear. So hopefully Tia really are considering some options and will find a solution for these athletes. And I get that we might be thinking, it's just a top. Does it really matter this much? Well, to these athletes, it really did matter. And we also know that body image is a serious thing. It's something CrossFit is well aware of. They even chose to share on their page Lucy Campbell's story in the Express talking about body image. It also raises the question of why. Why is it that you want the women to dress this way compared to the men? Why do they need to show a little bit more? Because we know how the handball athletes felt about this. And when they pushed for change because they didn't want to have to wear bikinis to play this game, well, no doubt there were a number of quote-unquote fans that were disappointed and unhappy that they were trying to make this change. And you can bet it wasn't to protect the purity of the sport. So while we see these women getting fined because they are trying to take steps forward in their sport, this could feel a little bit like a step back, because we've always had this incredible parity between the men and women within CrossFit. Because in many sports around the world, we're hearing this discussion about, well, why are the men earning more money than the women? And often the argument is that the men are actually bringing more money in to the sport than the women. But CrossFit was always proud of the fact that the men and the women, they earned the same. The prize money was the same. Not because of some noble gesture on the part of CrossFit, but because they were doing the same work. They had as much screen time. They were bringing as many people in to the sport. And yes, the choice of workout attire has always been slightly different between the men and the women, but it was always their choice, what they wanted to wear. And that is what is being taken away here, because currently the choice is it's a crop top or it's your own top. Now, obviously, this isn't an issue for me because I didn't qualify for Wodapalooza. And even if I had, I'd have been given a t-shirt. But this was a big concern for the athletes I spoke to, and I hope I've done justice to their concerns and also added some context to the discussion as well. But now it's your turn. What do you think? Is it wrong to limit their choice in this way? Or is this an overreaction? Should they just be grateful that they're getting a shirt, even if it's one they don't want to wear? Or is it right to be concerned if we start seeing this kind of trend creep in? I'd love to know what other people think about all of this. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.